Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm your host, Sam, and I'm back again with a very exciting episode that is lined up for you today. So, before diving into today's topic and announcing the name of our very special guest, let's read out this very important disclaimer. That is, by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. So, use of information is at your own risk. All right, so folks, once again, welcome back to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. And today, our topic is how will Trump's potential return reshape EB-1, NIW, and O-1 visas for skilled immigrants? So, as we all know, that Donald Trump is back again with his very tough agenda. And I think many are asking, different questions that how his immigration policies might evolve, particularly in areas affecting highly skilled professionals. So today we have an expert for this to clear all your doubts. And I think without any further ado, let me welcome our today's very special guest. That is attorney Poonam Gupta. With over 25 years of experience in immigration law, plus a solid background in intellectual property and litigation, she has become a go to expert in her field, and her deep understanding of US immigration literally makes her a trusted advisor for businesses and individuals alike. So, friends, if you are navigating some tricky legal issues or want to have a practical guidance, then I think for sure you have to watch this show and participate by commenting. And trust me, attorney Poonam's Gupta expertise is invaluable and highly respected. So, Poonam, welcome first of all to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. It's literally an honor to have you with us today. And how are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks, Sam, for having me. And I'm excited to address any questions that may come up because I know there is a lot of anxiety surrounding Trump 2.0 and based on what happened in Trump 1.0, but happy to address any questions and any concerns. There's a lot of negative talk, but I think there is hope and there are places where individuals can take steps to protect themselves.
Absolutely. And Poonam, we have been going through with so many different questions, especially when Trump is back again, and his agenda is completely different. Very strict, very tough. So, first of all, I would just like to know your point of view. That were you expecting Trump to be back in White House?
Yes, I was. Um, I mean, just given the momentum and his and his team's adeptness in managing social media and manipulating the media to spread information, disinformation, whatever you may call it. But the reality is that they are very social media savvy. And with most individuals that are, they rely on information from social media. So I definitely expected Trump to come back.
All right. So, also, Poonam, I also wanted to know that how the future, how Americans can see their future under Trump's era, specifically in terms of immigration. Sorry.
Um, he's outlined a very hard stance against immigration.
Mhm.
Always has. There has been some softening of his stance during his campaigns. The most notable being that his statement about stapling green cards to STEM graduates. It's completely opposite of him wanting to shut down the STEM OPT program. So there are all kinds of concerns around it, and the rhetoric that's been coming out of the transition team from the Trump administration, incoming Trump administration, has
Mhm.
not borne good news for immigrants. So I imagine a very hardline anti-immigrant stance, at least for corporate America.
All right. So, Poonam, do you think that it's fine because mostly Trump is saying that he is going to remove illegal immigrants and there won't be any harm with legal immigrants? So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's fine or can we trust on them or Is it something that legal immigrants should also be worried about something, or everything should be documented well? I mean, what's your thought on this?
So, even though the rhetoric has been focused on illegal immigrants, the reality is that in his previous administration, Trump impacted legal immigration way more than he impacted illegal immigration, just by virtue of policy changes, not regulatory changes, not any changes that required Congress or notice to the government. They were, I believe one of the institutes in their research calculated that the previous Trump administration made 1,400 policy changes. And the impact of those policy changes was to pretty much shut down legal immigration, whether it was travel bans, whether it was, travel bans through executive order, or whether it was changing the way USCIS adjudicates a case that changes the processing times and so on. And as a result, by the time the Trump administration was done with its 4 years, USCIS was on the brink of running out of money completely. Because they had directed resources to efforts that slowed down legal immigration. So I think there is a lot for legal immigrants to be worried about, but we've survived the previous administration. I have no doubt that we will be able to match and, if necessary, litigate any actions that have a negative impact for legal immigrants.
Oh my God, I think that's really, eye-opening. And thank you so much, Poonam, for literally sharing us such a insightful and informative news. I think that's great. And I hope, legal immigrants they are also looking forward to it. And I think you need to be very much updated with all the documents and all the news that's happening around the world. So I think, yeah, that's very important, guys. And also, Poonam, as today we are going to talk specifically about the three visa categories, that is EB-1, NIW, and O-1 visas. So, the thing that is common between these three, I mean, among these three visas are they have extraordinary abilities, or
Correct.
like they attract highly skilled individuals, basically, right?
Correct.
So, how do you think that Trump's return to White House, how could it impact the EB-1, NIW, and O-1 visa categories?
I think the biggest policy change, again, these are policy changes. The biggest policy change I anticipate is that there will be increased scrutiny. There's likely to be a narrower interpretation of the criteria, and there will be stricter adjudication standards. Bottom line, everyone can expect a higher bar, more scrutiny, longer processing times across the board. And because these, special category, the talent visas, require a higher bar from the rest of the category anyway, my anticipation is that they will face an even higher bar. The standards will be even higher and stricter and narrower interpretation of the requirements.
All right. So, Poonam, as you're mentioning that, legal immigrants are also going to face some kind of restrictions and difficulty basically in immigration. So, but, we also know that immigrants, they also contribute a lot in US economy. So,
Absolutely.
if this will be the case, if Trump is going to, remove so many legal immigrants too, then how is going to balance the U.S. economy? Won't that affect the economy? And how will, I mean, what do you think on this?
Right. So there will be an impact to the economy incrementally. And please understand that the stated policy will never be to restrict legal immigration or stop legal immigration, right? Or at least that's not how they present it. The impact may be slowing down legal immigration drastically, but I don't think there is a way to completely stop it unless, unless it's a travel ban or that kind of a situation where they completely shut down all processing.
Right.
But legal immigration per se will just face a higher hurdles and closer scrutiny and narrower interpretation, as I said,
Hmm.
to those any category for that matter. And the impact to the economy will be companies will not be able to employ the people that they want to employ, and they will need to move their resources and their operations outside the US if they cannot find the talent in the US. So there will not be an immediate impact to the economy, but long term there will be an impact. And
Absolutely.
obviously we will only know that at the end of that term, and it's hard to predict what it will be at the beginning of this, anticipated term.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's so correct. And Poonam, I would like to also ask you another question. Like you also mentioned about Trump's previous administration. So we know that Trump's previous administration was very difficult and obviously how it was. But now I would like to know specifically for EB-1 and O-1. So in Trump's previous administration, how were skilled immigration visas like EB-1 and O-1 were handled? And do you think that we are going to see a return to those policies again?
Absolutely. The policies, I mean, whatever I've said so far about narrower standards, stricter adjudication, narrower interpretation, and increased scrutiny, these are all what we experienced in the Trump 1.0 in the previous administration.
Right.
There is no sign that it will be any different in Trump 2.0. If anything, it may even be more strict, more scrutiny, and a much narrower interpretation. And in fact, the trends coming out of USCIS even now show a much higher rate of requests for evidence for the national interest waiver applications, for instance. Across the board, we are seeing attorneys talking about and posting about unreasonable and frivolous requests for evidence where they've addressed all those questions that the request for evidence is asking. But that is the kind of trend that we anticipate going into 2025. More requests for evidence, more notices of intent to deny, bypassing the request for evidence altogether.
Right.
So it's a lot of those hurdles we anticipate, but obviously we'll know more. The likelihood of there being more hurdles is much higher than not, just
Absolutely.
based on what we saw the last time.
Right, right, absolutely. So, Poonam, what can you say that Trump's administration, you already, said up how it was. So, we also want to know the difference between, Trump's administration, Trump's immigration policies and Biden's immigration approach to skilled immigrants. What were the major differences between them?
So the biggest, I think, difference between the two administration has been, while the previous Trump administration focused on slowing down legal immigration by creating administrative hurdles and burdens, and creating making policy changes that effectively slowed down, if not shut down, legal immigration.
Yeah.
And the Biden administration has been trying to reverse that trend. Obviously, it's hard to overturn all policy decisions overnight. So it's taken, as I mentioned before, USCIS was on the brink of running out of money at the end of the previous Trump administration. And now finally, USCIS is able to streamline functions and improve its processing times to a point where they actually have a surplus, or at least they're not running out of money and they are in a good place. Um, they've One of the key things that's impacted a lot of people are individuals who are waiting for their adjustment of status applications or have employment authorization documents now actually get a 2 year, a 5 year employment authorization document as opposed to 1 year. So instead of people applying for renewals every year or every 2 years, now they can wait 5 years to apply for that renewal, cutting down the number of applications that the government has to receive. That's just one example. Then obviously DACA has been extremely contentious for since it was instituted, and that continues. And I anticipate DACA is also going to come under fire. H-1B program under Trump received intense scrutiny. And the removal of the deference policy memo, again, a policy change where if someone had that status previously and USCIS had approved their H-1B previously or any visa category previously, if they applied for an extension, the deference policy memo said that we assume that the person qualified and will only look at the government will only look at the new facts and adjudicate based on that. So what that means is an H-1B extension prior to the first Trump term was pretty much an administrative function, but under um, Trump, one of the policies that they instituted was to remove that deference memo, which meant that every H-1B was reviewed as if it was the very first H-1B. And what that led to was denials of H-1B of H-1B extensions for individuals that had been in H-1B status for a long time. So Indians with backlogs because of the green card backlogs who'd been in H-1B status for 15 years were suddenly getting their H-1Bs denied. So things like that, and I can go on and on, but obviously want to be mindful of time. But this is just one example of where the Trump and Biden administration differ drastically.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's really important. And, the pointers that you are touching, Poonam, it's really great. I hope our audiences are loving that. And meanwhile, we have also have different viewers like Monali, Virginia. So hi, everyone. And guys, welcome to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. So I think, Poonam, let's take one question from our viewer. So yeah, this is we have received from Virginia. And okay, so it's saying that I filed my T visa application on March 21, 2024. I filed my T visa application on 3/21, 2024. Did biometric on 5th, 20th, 2024. File I-765 application on 10th, 28th, 2024. Biometric was added to my I-765 application on 11th, 5, 24. It's been 28 days since EAD. How long?
So, if I'm understanding this correctly, this person is asking for the processing times on how long it would be before they get the EAD. I would urge you to check the USCIS website and raise if they have processing times for each category, and they can actually plug in the time for when you can raise a request with USCIS. So if your application was before that time, by all means, go ahead and raise that service request with USCIS to say your case is outside processing times. But typically, uh, they take a couple of months. It's not, an EAD is not instantaneous by any stretch.
All right. So thank you so much, Poonam, for your answer, and thank you so much, Virginia, also for participating in today's session. And next up, we have Monali. So I think let's take her question as well. So Monali is asking that as an immigrant seeking one of these skilled worker visas, what should I be doing right now to protect my application in case Trump leads to policy changes? Are there any steps I should be taking now to stay ahead of any changes?
Sure. So, Manali, my recommendation to you would be if you're seeking to apply to O-1, NIW, or EB-1, or any visa category, you should make sure that all the evidence that you have is rock solid. There is absolutely no way to poke a hole into your evidence, into your objective evidence, not subjective. Subjective meaning if you're getting recommendation letters, then those recommend people should be able to talk about what your specific contribution was and how they are the experts to assess the validity of your contribution. So that's just one example. But ultimately, stay informed, stay connected to, I mean, follow the government and what policy changes they are instituting. And that is the best way. Just by way of example, yesterday, USCIS, out of the blue, without any prior notice, without any advance warning, switched up a small thing in a filing, and that was for adjustment of status applicants. They had previously a medical exam was not mandatory for them, right? But yesterday, suddenly, with no warning, they said they will reject any applications that are not submitted with the medical exam. So if yesterday was Tuesday, if someone sent their application in on Monday
Right.
and it was going to be delivered on Tuesday, their application is going to be rejected because overnight, what was acceptable on Monday when they shipped it is unacceptable on Tuesday when they received it. And that, unfortunately, I think is a peek into what we can expect in 2025. Um, Overnight policy changes with no grace period, with no advance warning, with no notice. And the prior Trump administration was notoriously famous for putting out executive orders at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. on Friday evenings, just at as the day and the week were closing. So I anticipate a lot more of those. So we'll see. But the only thing you can do right now is stay calm, do what you need to do, and then stay updated and be aware of what's going on.
I think that's great, Poonam. The way you are guiding, I'm sure our audience are literally connecting a lot with you. And, that's how, that's how a guidance should be, not only just to make that person afraid, but also to let them know that stay calm, that's okay. So, but anyway, guys, anyways, if you guys are still having any kind of problem or, navigating any issues like visa applications or some facing legal challenges, then I would recommend and suggest to contact attorney Poonam Gupta as soon as possible. You can email her on info at summitlegal.com, and you can also visit her website, that is www.summit-legal.com. So I think that will be great, contacting her and letting her know what your problems are so that she can guide you personally, and she will definitely going to help you out with the expert advice. So I think that's great. And also we have other viewers too, but Rohan, I would say that please stay connected. Let me ask some more questions from my end. Then we are definitely going to ask questions from your side. So, yeah, Poonam, so till now we are doing great, and we literally have talked different topics. But also, I would like to know about as Trump, he's saying that America first, hire Americans and America first. This agenda he's actually admiring. So, this policy is actually play in shaping some skilled immigration under Trump. So, what do you think that could this make the US less attractive to global talents?
Um, for sure, the higher American, um, you know, policies that Trump instituted, America First policies that Trump instituted in his previous term, will continue to be the highlight in the second term as well, I anticipate, and based on what we are hearing. Um, the skilled immigration, as I said, will face increased scrutiny, increased evidentiary requirements. They will need to show how they meet the criteria, a much stricter interpretation than previously. Um, there will be prioritization of US workers over foreign workers across the board. And there will be increased red tape and, as a result, ballooning processing times. Will this make global talent less inclined to come to the United States? I would hope, I mean, it seems like it because if you could get a visa to go work someplace in 6 months versus going to work someplace in 2 months, and the cost of getting a visa to come to the United States is significantly higher, and the time frame is significantly higher, and the stress is significantly higher, not only for the immigrant, but also for the employers, then it will be less and less attractive to bring global talent to US, and the companies will likely move operations outside US to countries that have a more favorable immigrant friendly environment. So I anticipate over time it will definitely go down. And during the Trump administration, the number of students coming to the US, which is the pipeline for global talent into US, a significant pipeline. The student enrollment in US slowed down considerably.
All right. So, Poonam has a question that I would also like to ask. That there was a news where Trump was saying that the students who are going to graduate from their university, he will provide green cards to them. So, this is something very different. But our viewers are very much excited to know what is this. I mean, what Trump is planning to and what's his agenda.
So, other than that one statement on the campaign trail, um, there has been no allusion to it before or since that statement. And my assessment is that that was simply a campaign rhetoric with no substance. There is no discussion. There has never been any discussion of what they're going to do or if they are even thinking about this. We've talked about deporting illegal immigrants on day one, but there has been no talk of accelerated green cards for skilled immigrants or STEM OPT graduates. There just hasn't been any talk, and I don't anticipate anything will come off it. And it is in direct contrast to the previous Trump administration's attack on STEM OPT and on students' ability to stay in the US and work in the US after graduation. So I don't anticipate that to go forward anywhere. I would be happy to be wrong. Very happy.
Absolutely. I think that's how it should be. But I think thank you so much, Poonam, for sharing your thoughts. And I know it's really being very helpful for our viewers too. So, all right, Poonam, moving ahead with my next question that is, many tech companies, rely on highly skilled foreign workers. So, how do you think that Trump's immigration policies might affect industries like technology and healthcare?
So technology and healthcare are two industries that are immigrant heavy. If you look at the top technology companies in the US, that they were either started by immigrants, and if they've grown to scale, then the majority employees are immigrants, or at least the grunt work at those companies, at those technology companies, is done by immigrants. Similarly, in healthcare, the physicians, I mean, there's a documented national shortage of healthcare workers, and immigrants, the physicians are primarily immigrants, the nurses are primarily immigrants. And if the pipeline, if the ability for these sectors to hire immigrants is impacted, which we anticipate it will be, my sense is that it could be troublesome for them to be able to hire talent and maintain their competitiveness. Technology companies or technology industry may still be able to pivot and move their operations abroad, but healthcare needs people on the ground to be able to help patients, and that is going to be a challenge.
All right. I think that's great. And thank you so much, Poonam, for taking this question up and answering it in a detailed format. So, also, Poonam, how do you think that Trump's stance on US China relations could impact EB-1 or O-1 visa applicants from China and other countries?
I mean, Trump stands not only on U.S. China, but the tariffs and all of that. They will. I think it's country agnostic. It does not matter what country an individual is from, or maybe that. Let me rephrase that. The country may matter if there is an additional scrutiny that the administration is going to put on them. But I anticipate every application to be scrutinized heavily, delays in processing, and there may be additional security checks or restrictions. So if there is a deterioration of US China relations, and if there is an impact to the immigrants coming from China, one of the policy changes may be additional security checks, additional restrictions on Chinese nationals, whether in EB-1 or O-1 or any other visa category. And as for other countries, and depending on what those countries are, if they were part of the travel ban last time, and if if the Trump administration continues to follow that list of countries, then I anticipate individuals from those countries will also face significant hurdles.
All right. So, Poona, moving ahead with my another question that is related to NIW. So, the national interest waiver is very crucial for many professionals. So, how might changes under Trump will affect those who are seeking these types of visa?
So, national interest is national interest waiver visa category is a category where individuals will have to demonstrate that their work is aligned with the US national interest. That US national interest is dictated by the administration and their priorities. So every year the government puts out is critical and emerging technologies list. And what industries and what sectors are on that list will impact what industries are considered or what fields of endeavor are considered in the national interest. So a pivoting of what may be relevant for national interest may change under the Trump administration. What may be, effective right now under the current administration may not necessarily be the same under the Trump administration. So that is number one, the changing of national priorities and what those focus are. And then the second is obviously an increased scrutiny of the application, a narrower interpretation of the standards. And we are seeing a trend where the government is saying, yes, you may be qualified, but all your work is for your current employer or your current locality or region or county or state or whatever. There is no national impact to your work. A common aspect or issue that USCIS has raised in their requests for evidence and denials has been in the, over the time, depending on administrations, but over time, they have had a situation where they have said that um, there is no national, the individual has not shown that their work will have a broad impact outside of their current niche, outside of their current employer. If they are working, if they are self-petitioning, then again, the challenge has been that the impact is not broad enough and it's not national, it's more local.
All right. So, also, Poonam, you mentioned about the industries. So, my next question will be from this only, that are there any specific professions or industries that might benefit or suffer from Trump's immigration changes to these visa categories?
So, depending on what the priorities of the Trump administration are, if their priority is technology, and they are willing to move or ease the path for legal immigrants in those in technology, then great, then that may benefit. But if they are going to restrict the standards, then obviously that may um, change. As I said, depending on what the priorities of this administration are, that will determine which industries benefit.
Mhm.
I anticipate national security, um, you know, companies dealing with national security may benefit. If there is an America First policy, how far that policy goes, is it to bring back manufacturing into the US? Then maybe the manufacturing sector will see an influx and will benefit from this. So, depending on what the priorities are, that will dictate which industries benefit the most. And so far, there hasn't been clarity from the incoming transition team on where those priorities currently lie.
All right. Thank you so much, Poonam, for taking this up. And also, Poonam, I would like to take one question from our viewer, that is from Dragon, that we received. So he's saying that previously approved O-1A as a soccer coach looking to renew and progress with EB-2 NIW. Are there any thoughts behind this?
So obviously, this is very case specific and individual. Your attorney would be able to guide you better on this, but just be mindful that there may be additional scrutiny. There may be a request for evidence asking for what is the national interest in having a soccer coach, right? I don't know enough about your case to give you specific feedback and guidance and tips on this, but focus on how your work impacts and is in the national interest. That's I think the most critical piece for you. I have no doubt you can show that you're qualified and there is benefit to it, but just focus on the national interest is what I would say.
All right. So thank you so much, Poonam, for answering this question, and thank you so much, Dragon, also for participating in today's session. And also, Poonam, I would like to ask one more question. After that, we'll shift to Facebook questions. So, could Trump's potential policies, make it more difficult for highly skilled workers to obtain EB-1 and O-1 visas? If so, then how?
My sense is that it will be. It will be harder. It will be difficult just because the administration is likely uh, to be more strict with where they place the bar, if you will. They are likely to interpret the requirements and the criteria much more strictly. They're likely to deny granting some of those benefits and accepting some of the evidence as they've done in the past. I anticipate the request for evidence rates to go up. I anticipate the notice of intent to deny rates to go up, and obviously the denial rates to go up considerably as well. There is just likely to be a much narrower interpretation and targeting of how the categories are met. And because it's a subjective assessment, it may be harder. And in the EB-1 category, what we have been seeing consistently is that they may say, okay, you have these criteria, but you do not meet the final merits determination. Under the final merits, they may kill an application, which they've been doing over the past, you know,
Mhm.
on multiple occasions, but I anticipate there will be much more final merits denials than they have been before.
All right, I think that's very important, and we need to be updated with all these latest information. And Dragon is here saying thank you. So, thank you so much, Dragon. And I forget to mention Virginia also. Virginia is also saying thank you. So, thank you so much to all of you, whoever are watching today's session. It really means a lot. And your participation is also very, very valuable. So now I think Poonam, let's shift our questions to Facebook questions, where we also received some different questions from our candidates. So Control, I would like to please share the screen so that we can display those questions to our viewers and Poonam too. All right. So, yeah, Poonam, here we have a very first question. That is, if you are already remotely running a business in the US with one freelance employee to do physical meetings when requested for past 6 months, will this hamper O-1 visa applications or present a stronger case? Business is registered in Delaware, but we are working with clients in New York and it's an online platform.
So this is a very, very fact-specific question, and I would need a few more details before I can truly address this. But I mean, there's likely to be more questions than less in any application, especially in O1. So I would say as lawyers, we need a lot more facts. We have a lot more questions than the information that's out here.
That's all right. That's all right. We can continue with the next question, and we would request this participant to please have share more and more details so that Tony Poonam can answer your question and clear your doubt. So yeah, this is the another question, that is, can someone get O-1 after applying or approved for I-140 for green card?
Yes, they can. There is, even though only traditionally only H1B and L1 are the categories that are dual intent, as in you are permitted to have the intent to stay in the United States long term, as well as apply for a non-immigrant visa. And O1 is a quasi dual intent because there is language in the regulation that says merely an application or approval of an I-140 should not be the basis for the denial of an O-1. So the answer to this question is yes.
All right, that's great. So I think we can shift to another question, that is, hi everyone, I am an actor who is in the process of applying for an O-1B visa and have two questions. So, firstly, it is, can a fellow actor who I worked with on the same project and is well respected write a letter of recommend? I think let's answer this question first, Poonam.
Sure. Anyone can write a letter of recommendation as long as what they are talking about is relevant to your work. So what is truly critical is that the work be relevant and pertinent, and the letter of the recommender has something substantive to say, and from personal knowledge, and from the what it sounds like, this your fellow actor is a well-respected actor, and they would be able to talk about your work and the contributions you've made.
All right. And the next question is that is it fine if two people from the same project write a letter of recommendation for me, or is it one per project?
So depends this whether uh, two people should write letters from the same project or only one or multiple. It's a strategic decision that you should have a discussion with your attorney about, because what each referee brings to the table, what value they add to your O-1 application will depend from person to person, application to application. So I would say please talk to your attorney and discuss strategically if it makes sense to have more than one person write a letter um, for your O-1 on the same project.
All right. So I think we should take up the next question as well. All right. So let me check here once. Okay, so I think Poonam, now I would like to share my screen and would like to share some different questions that I also have from my Facebook account. So let me just give a minute. Yeah, this one. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, great. Um, so yeah. So this is the question that we received. So I need to ask that do we need to submit ETA 9089 and related for EB2 NIW self petition?
Correct. That is required. That is, if you look at the mandatory requirements, it is the form itself needs to be submitted, whether it is ETA or and certain sections of the form, not the entire form. Either it's this form or ETS 750. One of these has to be submitted. It could be either or, it doesn't have to be both, but one of these has to be submitted because that is how the government gets the basic information about the individual being sponsored. Whether it's a self petition or employer sponsored, it doesn't matter, but that information is required. The only difference in an NIW petition is that the ETA 1989, which is the PERM application, is not certified by the Department of Labor in the case of an NIW. While in a regular EB2 or EB3 case, this ETA 9089 would be certified by the Department of Labor.
All right. So now moving ahead, Poonam, I have another question that is before submitting or mailing the petition, do we need to create an online account on USCIS?
So it depends on what kind of application you're submitting. Um, some petitions are employer petitions and have no connection to the employee. It's purely an employer petition, and you can create an account, but it may not help you. While the others are more and more online. More of the family-based petitions are online, and creating an online account definitely helps in those situations. The employment authorization document applications are online, and creating an online account for those is super helpful because those are things that you're able to get notices instantaneously, get notified instantaneously if there is a request for evidence. And more importantly, you're able to respond to those online and submit evidence online rather than mailing anything.
All right, I think that's great. And moving ahead with our next question that I have is let me just get into it. Yeah. So here's another question, Poonam, that how do I compile a 400-page petition book? Please advise, no staples or binding will work.
I'm not sure what they mean by compile of, like, is this just an application that they are trying to put together? I mean, obviously, the government doesn't want any staples or, uh, you know,
Binding.
Acco fastener or any of that. But Typically, if you just put all the application, all the materials in order and put a rubber band around it, we live in the hope that the government will look at everything and not lose paper, though I don't have that much faith. We've had situations where the government has lost paperwork, but those are the instructions. There's nothing we can do other than keep our fingers crossed.
All right, all right. So, yeah, here's another question, Poonam, that would a pending EB-2 NIW affect you in getting H-1B visa? With the new government and possible change of policies and waiting time, can I acquire an H-1B while there is a pending EB-2? I'm a J-1 holder. Thanks for your enlightenment. Yeah.
So, switch the bigger issue here, which they didn't highlight, is that switching from a J1 to H1B is not something that USCIS likes. J1, again, depending on the type of J1, if you're on a research J1, then maybe it's not such a problematic issue. But if you're on a trainee J1 or an intern J1, then it may be an issue. So that may be something that you may want to talk to your lawyers as well. As far as getting an H1B, once you are applied for H1B, you've gone through the lottery, or are working for an employer that is cap exempt, um, having an EB2 pending has no impact whatsoever because H1B is a dual intent visa, and an individual can have uh, a pending green card application along with H1B status.
All right. So, next up, I would like to take another question that is we received from Chloe, and this is that I have seen too many posts where people request to share the format of the petition, and I have not seen anyone sharing the sample of petition. Is there any format, or just we can use the guidelines of USCIS and write a petition accordingly?
So there is no guideline and there is no format. Every attorney has their preferences based on their experience and their writing style. So if you're doing it on your own, then I would say just use whatever works for you, but absolutely refer to the USCIS policy manual for that particular category. Make sure you address every single prong and every single aspect of um, the requirements for that particular category.
All right. So here we also have Poonam received a comment from Dragon, and he's saying that can you reiterate contact details, please? This has been great. So I think for sure, why are we waiting for this? I think also the Dragon, the details are you can see on the screen, but still I would like to read it out. That is, you're free to email her on info@summit-legal.com, and please visit her website, that is www.summit-legal.com. So I think this way, Dragon is definitely going to reach out to you, Poonam, and he is definitely going to ask so many different questions. So that's how it's going to be. And yeah, Poonam, so I think, we have touched a lot of different questions from Facebook, from viewers, and from my side also. But I still have some of the questions that I would love to know from you. So, yeah, here are some
I'm
questions,
just sorry,
that,
just I believe there was a question from Rohan that we didn't get to.
just a second, let me. All right, yeah. Here's a question from Rohan too. I'm so sorry, but that's great, Poonam, that you are actually keeping an eye of our viewers. So let's take Rohan's question, and he's saying that what does Trump's win mean for Indians, particularly those looking to make their mark in America?
And his second, like the second part to this was,
Yeah,
I
yeah, let me
believe,
read out this too. That his previous term saw a raft of immigration policies that affected skilled professionals and students, particularly those holding H-1B, F-1, and H-4 visas. Yeah.
So, Rohan, I believe I touched on these issues tangentially throughout this presentation. The one thing that I want to point out is that because the Indian community is impacted the most by or has the most backlog of any other nationality for getting green cards, the previous term saw a huge impact for legal Indian immigrants that were skilled workers because H-1Bs for individuals that were in the US for 10, 12 years, had a family, had kids here and house and everything, their H's were getting denied and they had to go back home and reapply, um, and go through that pain and stress for no reason. I mean, their kids were in school, their spouses were working, and so on. H4s, the H4 EAD programs, there's a whole litigation on that. There was like a time frame when it was taking the government more than 2 years to even process the EAD applications, and that was purely based on administrative policies and delays. F1s, as I said before, and I don't know if you were around when we started discussing that, but the STEM OPT program was a specific target, and F1 students were a specific target where there were several policy memoranda that were issued under the previous Trump administration that targeted the ability of students to live and work in the US post graduation for an extended period. There was talks of cutting the OPT and the STEM OPT for sure, and there were legal challenges and litigation on STEM OPT and H4 EADs and the legality of these programs. Um, there is a possibility, and there is some talk, and I don't believe in propagating fear or any of that, but there is talk about negative impact to these categories. What actually happens, we will see. And up until then, I would say let's stay calm and let's focus on what we can do. So if anyone has an H-1B that will expire anytime up until May or June of 2025, they should aim and push their employers to file for extensions in January or as soon as possible. Um, it, Petitions for extensions can be filed up to 180 days ahead of time, and I would urge everyone to do that sooner than later.
All right. So thank you so much, Poonam, for taking that up and explaining us in a very great detail format. So, Poonam, also I would like to ask you another question that for someone, who are planning to apply for particularly E1, EB-1 or O-1 visa in future, then what advice would you like to give them under Trump's era?
Be very, very thorough when applying for an EB-1 or an O-1 or NIW, any category. Be extremely thorough to make sure that you meet all the requirements for the category and have clear, objective evidence of how you meet that category. And if you get denied, please do not hesitate to litigate. Yes, it will cost you more, but um, sometimes, and especially under the previous Trump administration, we found that litigating
Yeah.
is what got us the results that we needed. So don't be afraid to litigate. I mean, obviously, I can understand the employers don't want to litigate because they feel it may put a target on their back and there may be retaliatory actions. But we have seen no evidence. We saw no evidence of it in the previous term.
Right.
So if you are comfortable and if your employers are comfortable, I would encourage people to litigate where needed.
All right. So, Poonam, with that, we have almost reached 1 hour, but I still have one more question, and I think this will be the last question. So, I hope you don't mind me asking that too.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, all right, that's great. So, yeah, Poonam, how could the anticipated changes in immigration policies under second Trump administration is going to impact the long-term immigration goals of EB-1, NIW, and O-1 visa holders, particularly those who are seeking for permanent residency through the green card process?
So these policies, the anticipated changes, will only increase the time it will take for individuals to get to the end goal of getting the green card. There are already backlogs in all categories across the board, for Indian nationals and Chinese nationals right now. But if there are stricter policies and stricter adjudication standards, then and l- resources internally are directed to other projects, then there may be a slower processing time and a bigger backlog over time. So if whatever you can do to accelerate your journey to get to that point, you should. And if not, then at least go down the perm path. I anticipate higher scrutiny on the perm side as well, but as long as those processes are followed, that offers a much clearer path to permanent residency. Even if you're in a backlog, at least you're in the queue, and then maybe pivot and rethink strategy as the policies evolve. Obviously, this is a strategic decision, and you should discuss these strategies with your attorney, with your legal team, and not make those in isolation. And what you may decide today may be irrelevant tomorrow, depending on what the policy comes out. So stay tuned for policy updates as well.
As you already mentioned that policies can change within a night. Sunday it's going to be something else, and Monday it's going to be something else. So I think obviously, under Trump's era, we are definitely going to see so many ups and downs. So we need to be very, very much, aware and updated with all the latest policies, all the latest news that's happening in, especially in US. So I think that's how, one can stay safe and one can uh, complete his American dream, what permanent residency, how he can get, right? So I think, yeah, that's great, Poonam. And with that, I would also like to say that obviously, as I mentioned in our last recorded video too, that you were very clear and practical, and in short, you were literally outstanding. So this time also, I would like to say the same thing, that you were literally clear. All our questions were absolutely fine, and I think we literally covered a great amount of questions, not only from the questions that I prepared, but also from the viewers, from the Facebook group. So I think our audience are definitely going to love it. And, we literally got a lot of engagement. So it's great. And Poonam, come on, tell us your experience. How did you feel to come live on this platform?
It's great. I mean, it's good to be able to allay some of the fears with a dose of reality. It's not hunky dory. Right now, it's not all rainbows and roses and all of that. There are tough times ahead, but we have the grit, we have the resilience, and we will persevere. So I'm here. I'm happy to support immigrants. That's my passion, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to communicate to people outside of my network as well. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, and great. I think your insights were literally so valuable, and I literally loved all the explanation that you covered and all the topics that we talked today. So I think, yeah, thank you so much, Poonam, for taking this time, and it was really, really pleasure having you with us on the show. And we are really looking forward to have more and more shows with you. I'm sure our audience will also, they will eagerly wait for your response. So, yeah, that's all from my side. And guys, to you all also, whoever is finding any problem regarding visa application or any legal problems or would like to know how, the guidance of immigration, then please feel free to contact attorney Poonam Gupta on the, you can also email her on the given details, that is info@summit-legal.com. And for sure visit her website, that is www.summit-legal.com. So that's all from my side. And Poonam, any last message that you would like to share with our viewers?
Thank you and stay positive. We've got this.
Right, definitely. We are going to do it together. And thank you so much, Poonam, once again. And thank you so much to our lovely viewers for attending this session and watching this session till the end and also participating in today's episode. It's really been great having you all. And as I already mentioned, that we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on X as well. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. And please be updated with all the information that we share through our channel. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm Sam signing off for now.